Reading of Brendan Dassey trial transcripts, Day 1, Video 3, beginning on page 30 of the transcripts. This is a continuation of Kenneth Kratz's opening statement. This is a place located here in Manitowoc in a place called the town of Gibson. It's rural Manitowoc. It's kind of the northern edge of Manitowoc, but it's a junkyard, a salvage business that has junked cars. And the other determination early on in this case was that a man by the name of Stephen Avery made an appointment at 8:12 that morning to have Miss Halbach come to that residence, or to come to that property, which was the Avery salvage property. I've alluded a little bit earlier about the case against Stephen Avery, and you first need to know about the case against Stephen Avery, the investigation that pointed towards Stephen Avery being involved in this case. You may already know, and many of your jury questionnaires told us that you know, at least some of things about this man, about Stephen Avery, that he had achieved some degree of notoriety in 2003 when he was exonerated, when he was released from prison for a 1985 sexual assault. You may know that Mr. Avery, or you'll hear in this case that Mr. Avery was exonerated or set free because of something called DNA evidence. Because there was some DNA evidence from the 85 case that didn't match in that case, and that an analyst from the state crime lab, one particular analyst, found DNA on one piece of evidence on a hair that was collected from the 1985 case that didn't match Stephen Avery. And so Mr. Avery was released. He was released from prison. Ironically, you will hear that analyst from the crime lab, the DNA specialist who exonerated Stephen Avery, was a woman named Sherry Culhane. You're going to hear her name later on in this case because Miss Culhane, as evidence is developed in this case, happens to be the very same analyst that does the DNA workup, that does all of the testing of the DNA case. All right, I'm going to, because the side screens are not quite as large, the bottom's cut off or the top is cut off, you're going to have to look behind me at least until we take our break when we fix these side screens. But this is the very first time and the very first important photo that I want you all to look at. This is the Avery salvage property, the Avery salvage yard. It consists of about 40 acres of junked cars. It consists of 4 different residences, 4 trailers on this piece of property. The Stephen Avery trailer, which is located in the bottom left-hand corner of the screen, or which would be the northwest corner of the property. Right next to Mr. Avery's trailer is his sister's property. Her name at the time was Barb Yonda. Also living with Barb at the time were her sons, 4 sons, all with the name of Dassey. They included the defendant, Brendan Dassey, his brothers, Blaine and Bobby and Brian. They all lived on that property as well. Another trailer that's located on this property was the Alan and Dolores Avery trailer. These were the grandparents of Brendan, or the mom and dad, if you will, of Stephen and his sister Barb. And also on the property was his brother Chuck's trailer. So there's 4 residences. You can see of the buildings that are on this massive property for them are businesses. You'll also notice on these aerial photographs that there's lots of buildings. There's outbuilding, there's business buildings, there's a lot of sheds and those kind of things that you need to be familiar with as you hear about some of the searches and where some of the evidence is found, all right? Well, the investigation takes a dramatic turn on the morning of Saturday, November 5, when 2 citizen searchers, Nicole and Pam Sturm, when given permission to search the Avery salvage property, these 40 acres happened to find the picture that you've seen here. They happened to find Teresa Halbach's SUV. You'll notice Teresa Halbach's SUV is covered. It is concealed. There will be testimony that it was intentionally concealed with branches of debris and this very large hood for a vehicle. A large either car or truck hood is leaned up against it. Suffice it to say, though, that at 10:30 in the morning on the 5th of November, this case takes a very dramatic turn. You'll hear that the VIN number, that is the vehicle identification number, when they're looking for Teresa, when the citizens are searching for Teresa, actually matches, and so they know that at that time that the vehicle is in fact the vehicle in question. Importantly, you'll hear evidence about where the vehicle was found. Miss Halbach's vehicle was found in the opposite corner of both the Avery and Dassey trailer. And again, it's behind kind of a pond, but it's immediately adjacent to or close to a car crusher. That car crusher is equipment. You will hear in this case, evidence will show is the kind of equipment designed to crush cars. It kind of makes sense. It's called a car crusher. But to make vehicles very, very small, almost unidentifiable and easily removed from the property. And you'll see why, and you'll hear why Teresa Halbach's vehicle is placed in that location. That is, that proximity to the car crusher. You'll also hear later on that night, after search warrants are obtained, you'll hear what search warrants are. Search warrants are judicial authorization. That is, a judge tells law enforcement that you can go ahead and search a property for evidence of a crime. And after those search warrants were obtained, you're going to hear that first evening that some canine units, what are called cadaver dogs, at least in sentence, insensitively called cadaver dogs, dogs that are trained to find and detect human remains, they in fact hit on the vehicle of Teresa Halbach, indicating that there was either a deceased individual in the back of that car or that there's human blood in the back of the car. You're going to hear evidence that this vehicle was located onto an enclosed trailer. It wasn't processed there at the scene. It was actually driven to the Madison Crime Lab for processing at that time. All right? Now let me just tell you again, this is a lot of information. This is days and days and days worth of testimony that, again, we're going to try to kind of fit into a short period of time because it's important to get to the crux of this case, what we'll be able to show a little bit later. But on Saturday, residences and places are starting to be searched. All right? The first place, or at least one of the first places to be searched, is the trailer of Stephen Avery. You'll hear from Agent Fossbender and others that are involved in this search effort that they want to find Teresa. Their first efforts, and early on in this case, even though they found her vehicle, Teresa hasn't been found yet. And so they're desperately looking for Teresa Halbach, hopefully alive. They're hoping to find her on this property alive. And so you're going to hear of the law enforcement effort to search all of these residences, again, which include the trailer, which include the garage of Stephen Avery and other residences, including Brendan Dassey's home, business, properties on the property, and also other vehicles. In fact, all of the junked cars. You'll see photos of 4,000 junked cars. I hope at the end of this case you'll be able to appreciate just how many cars that is to search, each and every one of those cars on at least 2 or 3 different occasions by not only law enforcement but volunteer firefighters and other citizen searchers. All right? Also, on the next day, that is on the 6th, that Sunday, the 6th of November, you're going to hear that every one of those junked cars is opened, is searched. Again, they're looking for Teresa Halbach's body. You're going to hear that a rifle, one of the 2 rifles that was in Stephen Avery's residence, was seized that Sunday. This rifle is a .22 caliber Marlin Glenfield semi-automatic rifle. You'll hear about the significance of this rifle, but you'll hear that it was actually hanging on the wall, at least when officers found it, hanging on a gun rack right on the wall in the bedroom of Stephen Avery. You're going to hear about a phone message that was recovered. This phone message was recovered from Brendan Dassey's home. You're going to hear in this case, and I know that I've advanced a little bit quickly for you, but when Stephen Avery made the appointment to lure Teresa Halbach to the property, evidence will show that he used the name B. Yonda. His sister's name is Barb Yonda. So using his sister's name, using his sister's phone number, or the callback number, you're going to hear this, or expect you'll hear this tape, this voice recording of Teresa, indicating that she got the message that the time that she would be able to come and take photographs of a van that was for sale was sometime after 2 on that day. But again, it was recovered, and you'll be able to hear that evidence. On Monday the 7th, the crime lab, and again, it's a little bit better if you look at this, they make a startling discovery. Remember, the SUV of Teresa was taken to the crime lab for processing? They found male blood in 6 different locations in the SUV, and they found a great deal of female blood in the back, or what's called the cargo area of Teresa's SUV. These were the first results they had gotten. They didn't get any DNA results back yet, but they could tell it was male blood, and they could tell that it was both female blood. You'll hear from investigators, from Mr. Fossbender, and even from some of the crime lab people, that when you find male blood and you find that amount of female blood in the back or in the cargo area of an SUV, it became very obvious on Monday the 7th, just a couple of days into this investigation, that something terrible had happened, that a crime had happened. Criminal behavior was afoot, and that the search then began for what person or persons were involved in committing these crimes. Also on Monday, you're going to hear about a burn barrel that was recovered from just outside of Stephen Avery's residence. The Stephen Avery and the Brendan Dassey residences, again, are next to each other, kind of between them. Closer to Mr. Avery's house is an Avery burn barrel. This is another photograph to kind of give you an idea of how close not only the burn barrel is to the Stephen Avery trailer, but also, and more importantly, how close this burn barrel is to the van. This is the maroon van that Teresa Halbach, the evidence will show, was asked to come and take pictures of on Halloween Day on 2005. And so you'll hear about all of those things. The next day, Tuesday, the 8th, you're going to hear that a thorough search was performed of Stephen Avery's trailer. And found in Stephen Avery's bedroom was a key. This was a Toyota key. You will hear evidence that later this Toyota key matches the key of Teresa Halbach's vehicle. Actually, SUV. It starts the ignition. It turns the ignition. The second important finding on the 8th was Teresa's license plates. These are found in a junked vehicle, kind of on the path on the way to Stephen Avery and Brendan Dassey's residence. And the third and most chilling discovery on the 8th, the evidence will show, is this burn area. Now, to give you an idea or an overview, again, of this corner, this quadrant of the Avery property again, the Dassey and Yonda trailer, Stephen Avery trailer, the van that was for sale, you'll be able to see that this burn area was found just a few feet behind the garage of Stephen Avery. You're going to hear evidence that within this burn area, obvious human bone fragments were found. You're going to hear that the crime lab came to process this scene, that arson investigators came to process the scene. They recovered, at least on that first day, that is, Tuesday the 8th, as many of the bones that they could recover from this obvious destructive area, this burn area. And the evidence will show that how the bones were recovered and transported for identification and examination. You're going to hear that officers, remember this is Tuesday, they had gotten there Saturday already, that officers weren't able to recover or to even examine this area. Either police officers themselves, humans, or with the assistance of canines, cadaver dogs, or bloodhounds, or any kind of search dogs, were not able to inspect this particular area because of a German Shepherd that was vicious and that was guarding that particular area, that particular burn area. This is a photo that just assists you and explains why it took until Tuesday to find these human remains in that area. All right? We'll move a little bit more quickly into the following, or into the balance of that week. The recovery of those bones, you will hear, were in very, very small size. They were also very degraded. They were charred. But they were all examined by a forensic anthropologist. We'll talk about that a little bit later in the case. But what you need to know on Wednesday is that they were able to say that they're human bones and that they're from an adult female. Officers obviously at this point believe that this is the site of the mutilation and the disposal of Teresa Halbach. Later on the next day, on Thursday, this burn area, this is a little computer-generated image of the burn area. Officers are able to further excavate and recover all the rest of the bones that are found in that area. And let me just take a moment to tell you about these computer-generated images that you're going to see. There's a gentleman by the name of Tim Austin. He is a employee with the Wisconsin State Patrol. Tim Austin was at the scene for at least 7 of the days that led up to or included the processing of the scene. And Mr. Austin, you're going to hear evidence. He took at least 4,100 measurements and later created not only still images of the exterior of the property, exterior of Mr. Avery's garage and trailer and the burn area and the John and Dassey areas, but also some of the interiors. Because you're not going to be able to go out there, because you're not going to be able to do a scene visit, Mr. Austin created for you kind of a tour. Many of you might be familiar with, at least with some kind of computers, virtual tours that you're able to kind of tour the area and get a kind of a lay of the land, if you will, and you'll hear how accurate the depictions are. You're going to see it. You're going to see the virtual tour so that you get a better flavor or feel for where one item might be in relation to another. All right? So we also have for you these computer-generated images that you'll see.